The invitation to the annual Sullivan family reunion sat on my polished ebony desk in my opulent penthouse, its gold-embossed lettering glinting under the morning sunlight, streaming through floor-to-ceiling glass windows, reflecting the vibrant Manhattan skyline. I stood there holding the invitation, a mix of excitement and apprehension swelling in my chest. For 15 years, I had maintained a meticulously crafted facade, a perfect charade concealing the truth of the financial empire I had built from nothing. Now that facade was about to crumble. Strangely, it wasn't my choice to end the silence. An email from Forbes had shaken everything. I opened my phone, rereading the line that made my heart race. Forbes 30 under 40, the new face of digital art. Sophia Sullivan's NFT empire reaches $3, $8 billion valuation. The article would be published tomorrow morning, just 2 days before the family reunion. The carefully constructed mask I had worn for years was about to shatter like fragile glass, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. Miss Sullivan, the voice of Sarah. My loyal assistant crackled through the intercom, pulling me from my thoughts. Your brother Marcus is on line 1 again. He's quite insistent this time. I sighed, unsurprised. Marcus had been calling relentlessly since the press release went out to major news outlets. He must have caught wind of the article, and curiosity, or perhaps panic, was getting the better of him. I picked up the phone, bracing myself for a tense conversation. "Hello, Marcus," I said, my voice calm but tinged with a sharp edge. "What the hell is going on, Sophia?" He skipped pleasantries, his tone as cold as a blade. "I just got a call from Business Insider asking for a comment about my billionaire sister. How to explain?" I leaned back in my luxurious Italian leather chair, my gaze drifting to the Manhattan skyline where skyscrapers, rose like monuments to ambition. "I guess you'll have to wait for the article like everyone else," I replied, my voice light but laced with defiance. "Cut the crap," he snapped, his voice rising with frustration. "All these years you let us think you were barely scraping by struggling with your silly digital art nonsense. Mum and Dad have been worried sick about you, Sophia. You know that." I let out a bitter laugh, one that carried the weight of 15 years of being misunderstood and underestimated. "Worried? Is that what you call it?" The endless lectures about getting a real job. The snide remarks that I was wasting my Ivy League finance degree, squandering my potential. Marcus went silent, and I could picture him on the other end, his handsome face likely contorted, trying to process the information. He had always been the golden child of the Sullivan family, following the path our parents laid out. Prestigious business school and MBA, then joining Dad's investment firm as an integral part of the family legacy. "Just tell me one thing," he finally said, his voice softer, almost a whisper. "How long have you been hiding this?" I stood up, walking slowly to the window, gazing down at the bustling city. A helicopter was landing on a nearby building's helipad. My helicopter, one of 3. I owned a symbol of the freedom and success I had quietly built. "Remember when I moved to that tiny studio apartment in Brooklyn?" I asked, my voice softening as memories flooded back. "When I started with what you called silly digital art nonsense? That was 15 years ago, Marcus." 15 years, he repeated, as if calculating the scope of this secret. "Exactly. Everyone thought I was crazy throwing away my finance degree to doodle on computers, as Dad put it so dismissively. But what none of you knew was that I had already sold my first NFT collection for $50,000. $50,000 back then." His voice was thick with disbelief. "Yes. And 6 months later, I sold another collection for $200,000. By the time Dad was telling everyone at Christmas dinner that I was going through a phase, that I'd soon come to my senses and join his firm, I had my first $1 million in the bank." I could almost hear Marcus's sharp intake of breath, as if he were trying to grasp the scale of my deception, or rather the truth I had kept hidden. But you still borrowed money from Mum and Dad for rent? He said, his voice faltering. You drove that beat-up Honda until last year. How could you? I never borrowed money. Marcus, I corrected, my tone firm but not harsh. I asked them to invest in my company. They refused not once but repeatedly, with snide comments that I was chasing a pipe dream. The Honda was a choice, not a necessity. Just like this penthouse, the private jet, the island in the Caribbean, and everything else I've hidden from the family. Private jet. His voice cracked as if he couldn't handle any more revelations. Jesus, Sophia, exactly how rich are you? I smiled, memories of family dinners flooding back when they treated me like the poor relative, when Olivia, our younger sister, would ostentatiously pick up the check, ensuring everyone knew she was helping her struggling artist sister. The Forbes article will say $3. $8 billion, I replied, but that's a conservative estimate. The real number is closer to $5 billion. Marcus made a strange sound, half gasp, half choke, as if the figure was too much to process. Now, if you'll excuse me, I continued, my voice light but authoritative. I have a board meeting to attend. Oh, and Marcus, I'll see you at the family reunion. I'm thinking of making an entrance, something unforgettable. I hung up before he could respond, pressing the intercom button. Sarah, is everything set for the reunion? Yes, Miss Sullivan, Sarah replied promptly, her voice professional as always. The private jet is fueled and ready. The Rolls-Royce car service has been arranged to pick up each family member from their homes. The venue has been changed to your private island in the Caribbean as requested, and non-disclosure agreements for all staff have been meticulously prepared. Perfect, I said, a sense of satisfaction washing over me. I picked up the reunion invitation again, my fingers tracing the embossed lettering, feeling the weight of 15 years of living behind a mask. All that time I had played the role. They expected the artistic black sheep, the one who couldn't handle the real world, the daughter who needed constant reminders about financial responsibility, the sister pitied and patronized at every family gathering. I had let them believe I was struggling, the failure they assumed I was, while they boasted about their safe successes. But this time things would be different. My phone buzzed with a text from Olivia. OMG, Soph. Please tell me this Forbes thing is a joke. What's going on? I ignored it. Olivia, who never missed a chance to flaunt her 6-figure salary, her Hamptons vacation home, or her stories of making it while I was still finding myself. I didn't need to respond to her now. The truth would soon be undeniable. The intercom buzzed again. Miss Sullivan, your parents are on the line. Both of them. Tell them I'm in a meeting, I said, glancing at the gold watch on my wrist. And Sarah, call the helipad. I'm taking the chopper to the board meeting today. I want to make an impression. As I gathered my things, my mind drifted back to the moment 15 years ago, the day I decided to hide my success from my family. It was a family dinner, the warm glow of chandeliers casting light on the dining table, but the atmosphere was cold and judgmental. My father's voice boomed across the room. Digital art isn't real art, Sophia. NFTs are a fad, a scam. No one's going to pay real money for pictures on a computer. I was 22, fresh out of college with an Ivy League finance degree, sitting there trying to explain my vision, a world where digital art could revolutionize the creative industry. Actually, Dad, I just sold my first collection for enough to... He cut me off, his voice hard. I don't want to hear about your little hobby. Either you work for the firm as planned or you're on your own. No more support, no safety net. My mother reached across the table, patting my hand condescendingly. Sweetie, we just want what's best for you. You need stability, a real career. I looked around the table, seeing the familiar expressions. My father's disappointment, my mother's concerned frown, Marcus's smug smile, Olivia's barely concealed disdain. That was the moment I made my decision. I wouldn't tell them about the $50,000 sale or the 3 galleries vying to represent me, or the tech companies reaching out for collaborations. You're right, I said, standing up, my voice trembling slightly but resolute. I need to figure this out on my own. 2 weeks later, I moved into the smallest, cheapest studio apartment in Brooklyn, a cramped space with peeling paint and dim light from a single window. My family assumed I was struggling, living off savings, too proud to admit defeat. In reality, I was building an empire. That first year was a whirlwind of relentless work. I put in 18-hour days, sleeping on a worn-out sofa to save time, honing my artistic style, diving deep into blockchain technology, and forging connections in the burgeoning crypto art community. My first major collection, Digital Dreams in Binary, launched and sold out in hours, bringing in $1, $2 million. I reinvested every cent, hiring developers, creating platforms for other artists, innovating in ways the traditional art world couldn't fathom. But every time I visited home, I drove my old Honda, wore thrift store clothes, and played the part of the struggling artist they expected. At least let me help with your rent, my mother would offer, her voice dripping with pity, while my father shook his head, his eyes full of disappointment. No thanks, Mom. I'm fine, I'd always reply, though. Inside I was laughing. By the end of that first year, my net worth hit $10 million. By year 3, $100 million. But to my family, I was still just Sophia the dreamer who couldn't face reality. Now, 15 years later, as I stepped onto my private helicopter, the roar of the engines blending with the pounding of my heart, I thought about how it had all spiraled beyond my initial intentions. What began as a small deception, a spur-of-the-moment decision to protect my dream, had grown into a monumental secret, an empire hidden behind the facade of failure. In 2 days, everything would change. My phone buzzed again. Another text from my father. We need to talk now, Sophia. This can't wait. I smiled, my finger brushing the screen to power it off. They would have to wait for the reunion. After 15 years of hearing about my failures, they were about to learn of my success, a revelation I had carefully planned to ensure they'd never forget. The Forbes article dropped at exactly 6 Eastern Time. I was already awake, sitting in my home office, sipping coffee from an expensive porcelain cup, my eyes glued to the large screens displaying the chaos unfolding online. Digital art revolutionary. How Sophia Sullivan built a multi-billion-dollar empire in secret. The photo I had chosen for the article, me standing in front of my most successful NFT collection, wearing a designer outfit worth more than Olivia's monthly salary, appeared on every platform from Twitter to financial news sites. The article didn't just reveal my wealth, it detailed every milestone I had hidden for 15 years, from the first $50,000 sale to billion-dollar deals, from the tiny Brooklyn apartment to my private Caribbean island. My phone exploded with notifications. The family group chat erupted like fireworks. Olivia, is this for real? Betrayal, 8 billion. Sophia, what's going on? Marcus, I tried to warn you all yesterday, but no one listened. Mom, Sophia, please answer your phone. I need to talk to you. Dad, this must be some mistake. It can't be you. Even Aunt Patricia, who rarely used the group chat, chimed in. Just saw the article. Is our Sophia the Sophia Sullivan? I muted the chat and turned to my emails. Hundreds of interview requests from major outlets. CNN, Bloomberg, you name it, along with investment opportunities and speaking invitations for international conferences. But one email caught my eye from Albert Chen, my father's longtime business partner. Sophia, he wrote, I believe we need to discuss potential synergies between Sullivan Investments and your digital art platforms. Your father may have mentioned some concerns, but I assure you we can be quite flexible. I laughed out loud, the sound echoing in the quiet room. 3 years ago, I had approached their firm with a partnership proposal. Albert had personally shown me the door, saying they didn't deal in internet pictures and that I should find a real job. Now, with the truth laid bare, he wanted to collaborate. The irony was delicious. The intercom buzzed. "Miss Sullivan, your mother is in the lobby downstairs." She's very insistent, arguing with security. I checked the security feed. There was my mother, Alina Sullivan, still impeccably dressed in a designer suit. But her eyes held a wildness I had never seen before as she gesticulated at the guard. "Let her up," I sighed. It was time to face at least one family member, and I knew this conversation wouldn't be easy. The private elevator opened directly into my penthouse. My mother stepped out, froze her eyes wide as she took in the surroundings. The vast open space with soaring ceilings, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. An original Basquiat painting on the wall, likely worth more than their suburban mansion. "Sophia!" She breathed, her voice unsteady as if she couldn't believe her eyes. What is all this?" I walked to the small bar in the living room, pouring a cup of coffee from a high-end machine. "This is my home, Mom. The real one, not the tiny apartment in Brooklyn I kept for family visits." She stepped slowly to the window, her heels clicking on the black marble floor. She gazed down at the city, then turned back, her face a mix of confusion and hurt. How did you do this?" 15 years, I said, handing her the coffee. "Since the day Dad said my digital art would never amount to anything, that it was just a scam." She turned, her eyes widening further. "But you struggled. We saw it. The tiny apartment, the old car, borrowing money for rent." "I never borrowed money, Mum." I corrected, my voice calm but sharp. "I asked you and Dad to invest in my company. You refused not once but repeatedly, with snide remarks that I was wasting my time. The apartment, the car, that was all theatre. I let you see what you wanted to see because you were so convinced I was failing." "Theatre." Her voice rose almost a shout. "You've been lying to us for 15 years, Sophia." "No, Mom," I replied, meeting her gaze. "I just let you believe your own assumptions. You were so certain I couldn't succeed that none of you bothered to look closer." She sank into an Italian leather chair, her hands clutching the coffee cup as if seeking comfort. She suddenly looked older, the fine lines on her usually meticulously maintained face more pronounced. "Did anyone else in the family know?" she asked, her voice faint. "No one," I replied. "Well, except Marcus. He found out yesterday when the press release went out." She nodded weakly, her eyes distant. "He called. But your father was certain it was a mistake. He said there's no way the Sophia Sullivan in the article could be you." I walked to my desk, retrieving a thick leather-bound file. "This might interest you," I said, handing it to her. "It's the investment opportunity I pitched to Dad 3 years ago. If he had invested, the $1 million I asked for his share would be worth roughly $100 million today." Her hands trembled as she took the file, her eyes scanning the numbers and charts. He said you wanted a handout, that you were too proud to admit your art wasn't working out." "And I believed him," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Mom, in 15 years, did any of you ever come to one of my shows, look at my work, or even Google my name?" I asked, my voice soft, but cutting like a blade. She lowered her eyes, unable to meet mine. "That's what I thought," I said, turning back to the window, gazing down at the city I now partially owned. The bustling streets, the towering skyscrapers, all testaments to what I had built, while my family was busy with their prejudices. "The family reunion is in 2 days," I continued, my voice steady. "I've made some changes to the arrangements. I bought out the public resort where it was supposed to be held. Instead, everyone will be picked up by my private Rolls-Royce cars and taken to my jet. We'll have the reunion on my private island in the Caribbean, which I purchased last year when I closed my first billion-dollar deal." She looked up, her eyes wide. "Your island?" "Yes," I replied, smiling. And Mom, this time, I won't be sitting quietly while everyone brags about their mediocre successes. This time, I have something to say. She stood smoothing her designer skirt with trembling hands as if trying to regain her usual composure. Your father, when he sees all this, he'll have to admit that his little girl, who he thought was just playing with computer pictures, built something bigger than the family legacy he's so proud of. I smiled, but it was a cold smile. And that's just the beginning, Mum. I walked her to the elevator, but before the doors closed, I added one last thing. Oh, and Mum, that Bentley you've been dreaming of but Dad said was too expensive. Bought 3 last month just because I could. The elevator doors closed on her shocked face. As soon as she was gone, I called Sarah. Is everything ready for the reunion? Yes, Miss Sullivan, Sarah replied. The island staff is prepared. The documentation packages for each family member detailing the times they dismissed your investment opportunities and the current value of those shares are ready. The video presentation of your success timeline is also complete, ready to be shown at dinner. Perfect, I said, a sense of satisfaction spreading through me. I returned to the family group chat, sending a single message. Looking forward to seeing everyone at the reunion. Dress appropriately for a private island. Transportation will be provided. Then I opened my laptop to check the market. The Forbes article had sent my company's stock soaring, adding another $1 billion to my net worth before breakfast. I thought about my father, probably sitting in his office, trying to understand how his failing daughter had quietly become one of the richest people in the country. About Olivia, realizing I could buy her entire life with the interest I earned daily. The reunion was going to be more than interesting, it was going to be transformative. The day of the Sullivan family reunion dawned clear and bright, not a cloud in the vibrant blue sky. I stood on the tarmac of my private airfield, the breeze gently tousling my hair, feeling like a warrior preparing for a final battle. 3 Rolls-Royce cars approached in perfect formation, their silver bodies gleaming in the sunlight. My family had arrived. The car doors opened and they stepped out one by one. My father, his usual commanding presence, somehow diminished his eyes, betraying unease. My mother, still shaken from our meeting 2 days ago, her hands clutching her designer purse as if seeking comfort. Marcus, Olivia, and various aunts, uncles, and cousins, their expressions ranging from shock to barely concealed resentment. And there, at the center of the tarmac, stood my gleaming private jet, the words Sullivan Digital Empire, emblazoned on its side in elegant lettering, a bold declaration of my existence. Welcome, everyone, I said, my voice carrying across the quiet air. I trust the ride in the Rolls-Royces was comfortable. My father stepped forward, attempting to reclaim his authoritative tone. Sophie, this is really unnecessary. We could have had a perfectly fine reunion at the resort, like every year. I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. The resort was too public, Dad. Besides, it's time we bonded as a family, my way on my private island. Your island? Olivia muttered, her voice tinged with skepticism, clutching her designer handbag like a shield. Of course you have an island, she added, her tone laced with sarcasm, but unable to hide a hint of envy. The flight to the island was a spectacle even for me. As my family settled into the opulent cabin, their eyes darted everywhere, taking in every detail. The gold-plated fixtures, the rare artworks adorning the walls, the vintage champagne served by impeccably trained staff. Is that a real Picasso? Aunt Patricia whispered, her eyes fixed on a painting mounted on the cabin wall, her voice thick with awe. Yes, I replied casually. I bought it last year along with a few others. A small investment, but worthwhile. My father cleared his throat, trying to interject. Sophia, perhaps we'll discuss everything when we land. Dad, I cut him off, my voice gentle but firm. For now, enjoy the flight. The champagne is particularly good. It costs more than your company's quarterly profits, if I recall correctly. He flinched, his face paling slightly. Good. I wanted him to feel the weight of what was coming. 2 hours later, the jet began its descent. Through the windows, my private island came into view, a jewel in the Caribbean Sea. 300 acres of tropical paradise with a state-of-the-art resort complex at its heart, surrounded by pristine white beaches and lush rainforests. And there, just as I had planned, my name was painted in massive letters on the helipad. Visible from the air, Sophia Sullivan. Olivia gasped as she saw the giant screens surrounding the helipad displaying my most successful NFT collections, each with their multi-million-dollar sale prices prominently shown, a stark reminder of what I had achieved. Welcome to Sullivan Island, I announced as we disembarked, my voice ringing with confidence. My own little piece of paradise. I led my family into the resort, a masterpiece of modern architecture, seamlessly blended with the island's natural beauty. Each family member was shown to their private suite, where I had left reading material, personalized packets for each of them. For my father, a detailed list of every investment opportunity of mine he had dismissed, along with their current valuations, worth hundreds of millions. For Olivia, a cold comparison of her 6-figure annual salary to the interest I earned daily. For Marcus, information on the massive profits his firm had missed by refusing to work with my company. I gave them an hour to settle in and absorb the information, to let the numbers and the truth sink deep into their minds. Then I summoned them to the main dining room, a breathtaking space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the shimmering ocean, a grand table carved from rare wood, each place setting worth more than most people's cars. On every wall, the Forbes article was beautifully framed, its headline, Digital Art Revolutionary, an inescapable declaration. My family filed in, slowly looking shell-shocked. They had changed for dinner, but even their expensive clothes seemed inadequate in this setting. Please sit, I said, gesturing to the table. We have a lot to discuss. My father spoke first, his voice attempting to hold its usual authority, but betraying unease. Sophia, I think I speak for everyone when I say we're surprised. Surprised. I laughed softly, but the sound was sharp. Not angry that I deceived you, not hurt that I hid my success, just surprised. We didn't know, my mother said quietly, her voice almost a whisper, her eyes glimmering with regret. You didn't want to know, I corrected, locking eyes with each of them. Every time I tried to talk about my work, you changed the subject. Every time I offered investment opportunities, you dismissed them, laughed them off, said I was chasing a pipe dream. You were so convinced I was failing that none of you bothered to look closer. Olivia interjected, her voice trembling. But the apartment, the old car, all those times you let me pay for dinner because I thought you couldn't afford it. Did you enjoy that, Olivia? I asked, my voice soft but cutting. Playing the successful sister, making sure everyone knew you were helping out poor struggling Sophia. She lowered her eyes, her cheeks flushing with shame. Let me show you something, I said, pressing a button on a control panel. Large screens descended from the ceiling, displaying a detailed timeline of my success, alongside their dismissive comments over the years. 2008. Digital art isn't real art. Dad, as my first collection sold for $59,000. 2010, when are you going to get a real job? Mom, as my company hit a $10 million valuation. 2015, at least I can help my sister out. Olivia, as my net worth passed $500 million. 2020, we don't invest in internet pictures. Dad's firm, as my company reached $1 billion. Every doubt, every dismissal, every condescending remark, I said quietly I remembered them all. And with each one, I built something bigger, stronger. Why hide it? My father asked, his voice cracking, revealing a vulnerability I had never seen in him before. Because you needed to learn something, I replied, my gaze sweeping over them. Success doesn't come in just one shape. Not always the safe path you laid out for Marcus or the six-figure salary Olivia bragged about. Innovation doesn't follow your predetermined road. And sometimes the child you wrote off as a failure is the one who succeeds beyond your wildest dreams. I stood walking to the window, gazing out at the ocean sparkling under the moonlight. Do you know what the hardest part was? Not the secrecy, not pretending to struggle. It was watching you all celebrate mediocrity while dismissing true innovation, true vision. Mediocrity. Marcus bristled, his fists clenching. Yes, mediocrity, I said unflinching. You followed Dad's safe path, got the job he wanted, made risk-free investments. And I turned to Olivia. You bragged about your six-figure salary while I was making that much in minutes. Enough! My father stood, his voice trembling but still trying to hold authority. You've made your point. We were wrong. Is that what you want to hear? No, Dad, I said, meeting his eyes. What I want is for you to understand, truly understand. This, I gestured to the opulence around us. The resort, the ocean, the screens. Displaying my success isn't about money. It's about vision. The vision you couldn't see because you were too busy clinging to the past, to what was safe and familiar. I pressed another button and new images appeared on the screens. My latest project, a revolutionary platform that would transform how digital art is created, bought, and sold. This launches next month, I said. Conservative estimates value it at $10 billion. I'm showing you this because for once I want you to see what I'm building before it happens. No more doubts. No more dismissals. The room fell silent, the only sound the gentle lapping of waves outside. Finally, my mother spoke. Her voice choked with emotion. We're proud of you, Sophia. We should have been proud all along. Thank you, Mom, I replied, but my voice held no warmth. But I didn't do this for your pride. I did it because it was my dream, my vision. And now it's my empire. What happens now? Marcus asked, his voice low as if afraid of the answer. Now we have dinner as a family, I said, sitting at the head of the table. But this time it's on my terms. No more pretending, no more hiding. And tomorrow I'll take you on a tour of the island to show you exactly what your daughter, sister, and niece has built, while you were all too busy not noticing. I raised my glass to the truth. They raised theirs, looking like people who had just emerged from a strange dream, still dazed. The evening passed in a blur of gourmet cuisine prepared by a world-class chef, fine wines from my private cellar, and conversations that slowly grew less strained. My family was beginning to see me, truly see me for the first time in 15 years. As they retired to their suites, I stayed in the dining room, standing by the window, gazing at the moonlit ocean. Sarah appeared at my side as she always did, sensing when I needed someone to listen. Was it worth it? She asked softly. This grand reveal. I thought about their stunned faces. The shock, the dawning realization. Yes, I said, my voice low, but not for the reasons I expected. It wasn't about proving them wrong as I once thought. It was about finally being free to be myself, no longer hiding. And tomorrow? Sarah asked, a slight smile playing on her lips. Tomorrow, I replied, a smile spreading across my face, I'll show them the future. The safe, predictable world of traditional investments and conventional success is over. It's time they understood that the daughter they wrote off as a dreamer wasn't just dreaming. She was building a new world right in front of them while they weren't looking. That night, I found a note slipped under my door in my father's shaky handwriting. I was wrong, not just about the business, but about everything. You didn't just succeed. You revolutionized an entire industry. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. Dad. I held the note, placing it in a small silver frame next to the receipt from my first NFT sale, worth $50,000. A reminder of where I started and how far I had come. The next morning, as my family gathered for breakfast in the open-air dining area overlooking the sea, I noticed something profound. Their attitudes had shifted. No more pitying glances, no more veiled barbs. They looked at me with respect, albeit tinged with unease. But that no longer mattered. Success wasn't just about proving others wrong, as I had once believed. Sometimes it was about proving yourself right, standing firm in your vision despite all doubts. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Sullivan Digital Empire announces revolutionary new platform. The future was calling, and this time my family would watch it unfold in real time. No more hiding. No more pretending. I was ready for the world and my family to see who I truly was.